the property management industry, fair housing offenses are considered especially troubling. In the United States, a dedicated fair housing attorney, Leslie Tucker, provides case explanations and best practices. These are some cases.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fair Housing Insider's Case Files, Episode 3, with Leslie Tucker, the principal at Williams, Edelstein, and Tucker. I'm your host, Jonathan Sarr. Today, we are talking about a case that is something of interest to who the plaintiff is and the state of Florida, Shen versus Simpson. And here we have a case that is challenging some provisions of a new Florida law, specifically who can or cannot purchase properties. Leslie, can you give us some more details?
Yeah, this case is really interesting. And I think that it might be, one case of many around the country in states that are maybe passing these same types of laws. The plaintiffs in this case are 4 Chinese citizens who live and work and raise their families in the state of Florida. They are essentially prohibited from purchasing homes in the state of Florida. And that's why they brought this case. The other plaintiff that's involved is a real estate group who works primarily with individuals of Chinese descent and who also claims that it was harmed and is harmed by this law. The law that prohibits the plaintiffs from purchasing homes in Florida is State Bill 264. It was passed just a couple of months ago in May and took effect at the very beginning of July. It targets Chinese citizens primarily, but it also affects citizens from some other specific countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Syria, Iran, Russia, and North Korea. These are dubbed, countries of concern in the law. And the law basically limits their ability to purchase property in the state of Florida. It was passed in the name of national security. The law does carve out a minor exception for some of these citizens of other countries who have been granted non-tourist visas or who have been granted asylum. Those people are permitted to purchase one residential property under 2 acres, and it can't be within 5 miles of any military installation in the state, right? So it's a very narrow exception. Incidentally, there are, over 20 military installations in the state. Lots of them are within 5 miles of major city centers. So it still does have a major limiting effect on these people's ability to purchase homes and where they want to purchase their home. So in restricting or limiting the ability of some national origins to purchase residential property, there's an obvious fair housing question that is raised. Certainly, national origin is a protected category under the Fair Housing Act. So certainly that is in question here. And the case also raises constitutional questions as well. This case is currently ongoing.
So thanks for that overview, Leslie. So a question for you. Are there any circumstances that may permit a homeowner to discriminate against applicants from a specific country?
Well, yes, there is an exception. Generally, people that are selling homes are covered by the Fair Housing Act. Therefore, they cannot discriminate on any of the protected categories, either in their state or the federal protected categories. And any real estate agents or attorneys that are assisting in that process are also covered by the Fair Housing Act. The exception that I'm talking about basically allows a single family homeowner who is selling or renting their home by themselves with no assistance from a broker or an agent, no real estate agent assistance. If that homeowner doesn't live in the house, doesn't own more than 3 houses, and sells only 1 house in a 2-year period. So that's the exception. Those people, if you fall under that category, the Fair Housing Act doesn't technically apply to you. You still aren't allowed to market or advertise your property in a discriminatory manner, but the way that you deal with applicants and decisions that you make technically aren't subject to the Fair Housing Act. But again, it is a very, very narrow exception. That's certainly completely different from what's going on in this case, which is that the state of Florida is mandating that homeowners and real estate professionals have to take national origin into consideration in the sale of homes, or they could potentially face civil or criminal penalties. So this case has no application to that little exception that I just told you about. This is mandating essentially discrimination against certain groups of people. So it is very different, and it'll be interesting to see how this case turns out.
Yes, I agree. Interesting is that's a good word. Good word. Yeah, but thank you for explaining that. I'm sure our audience is wondering the same thing. Like, I'll have to see where this goes. So yeah, thank you, Leslie. Appreciate your insights into this particular case. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into our show today. This concludes episode 3 of the Fair Housing Insiders Case Files. Until next time, take care.